Hello, everybody. Now, I can remember when this gentleman I first met some years ago now, when everybody regarded him as a conspiracy theorist. Now, sadly for everybody, but not for Mark, we've all known that this is completely untrue, and everything Mark has said to me so far has come to fruition, sadly. And I mean sadly because it's not good. Mark, we've been talking off air. We won't go into your background. If people want to look at your background, they can go onto previous videos that we've done with you. They're all on the website and the TV station. Mark, good afternoon. Let's launch into where we're at the moment.
Well, we're in the middle of what's called the fifth generation warfare plan. Now, I spoke about this a number of years ago, and unfortunately, a lot of people believed that what I was actually speaking about was, exaggerated. It was overblown. It wasn't the problem that I was actually telling people. Unfortunately, that there are actors within the state apparatus who unfortunately want us dead, and they are planning a mass murderous agenda where they're going to bring technologies to our streets, LED streetlights, 5G networks, ULEZ weapon systems, 15-minute cities, all part of an extermination plan, all part of the Fourth Reich final solution. Now, obviously, some of those things are extremely difficult for most people to get their head around. Unfortunately, 5G, because of the technical parameters of it, I knew exactly what it was, and I knew it was pretty early on. So in 2016, my council rock up outside my home and they put these new LED streetlights in. Now, optical radiation is one of the things I know quite a bit about due to a number of patents mitigating this type of technology and mitigating LED weaponry on the battle space. So I know about head-up display systems and how we have to use certain types of technologies to mitigate this in the battle space. So the council rock up. It looks like a street light. It's a multi-photon phased array LED street light and no diffuser. Now, if we just wind things back a little bit, we used to have gas lights. Then we had high pressure sodium. High pressure sodium was 2200 Kelvin. It was 2200 Kelvin for a reason. It had an orange optical radiation emission, right, in about the 2002 2000 K, and that was to protect, that was to mitigate the potential hazard from artificial light. Artificial light is a known biological stimulant and can be toxic to life. So I had 2200 Kelvin. I mean, this goes back to photonics. It goes all these people who understand the subjects that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the general public. We're talking about people in positions of academia and people who understand photonics and these particular issues realize there's significant risk to life from artificial light. And the reason pulse modulated frequencies, extremely what you don't want. We are symbiotic with the sun. Sunlight gives you skin cancer. The government will tell you, they'll warn you about optical radiation from the sun. Man-made is something completely more toxic. So artificial light, something you don't want to be exposed to, and especially if it's modulated, pulse modulated. So it's basically like a jackhammer. So what happened? My council rock up. They put LED lights in the street. There's no diffuser. The high pressure sodium at 2200 Kelvin, this glowy orangey color, right? That some people didn't like, but some people did find it a lot cool, a lot less abrasive, a lot less prison type, environment. What you'll find is that we had the 2200 Kelvin, and all of a sudden your councils have deployed this LED streetlights because they're being pushed for a carbon reduction issue. And obviously LEDs, light emitting diodes, use a lot less power. So they're being pushed into this because of some fake net zero narrative. because it's all carbon dioxide is the green gas. It's the exact inversion of where people would say, we need to reduce CO2. No, we actually need more carbon dioxide, and that will green the planet and will cool it. It's the exact inversion of the narrative where we need to reduce it, the total inversion. So we've got this. So anyway, we end up with these LEDs. Now, I'm looking at them going, hang on a minute, these are extremely dangerous. They're bare elements, no diffuser. They actually had diffusers on the 2200 Kelvin high pressure sodium orange lights to stop what's called point light source. They also have ballasts in those lights to stop. In the United Kingdom, we have what's called AC. So you've got this current, this modulated current at 50 hertz. What you do not want is pulsed 50 hertz emission in optical radiation because the photon values are really high. It's really toxic. So what you do is you smooth that out and you make sure that that doesn't happen. All of a sudden, right, in 2016, my local council pop up with an LED street light. It's on a headlamp with no diffuser. It causes point light source. It's a category 2 optical radiation emitter. The maximum exposure to in that particular standard is 0.25 a second. So they rock up outside me home and put these LED street lights up. No diffuser, 450 nanometers frequency, blue phosphor coated LED. The phosphor wears off over time, so you get a more 450 nanometers frequency, which we know is biologically toxic to all life. All life forms are damaged and harmed by this type of optical radiation. And not only that, it's pulse modulated. So it's what I said in 2016 and 17, these were weapons. They were weapons to cause bodily harm. Anything that's been designed to cause bodily harm is, by definition, a weapon. It can be in many things, but it most certainly is a weapon system. So I knew it was a weapons program, and then I started getting people contact me and go, Mark, for some inexplicable reason, since they put these LED lights in, I'm starting to develop nosebleeds. And I had lots and lots of people talking about nosebleeds. I had women locally to me where they were having nosebleeds. Now, I know that anything in the terahertz range will not penetrate, brickwork, concrete, any type of, you can block terahertz range radiation with, thick paper, cardboard, those type of things, blackout blinds. Anyway, I contacted some people I knew at Public Health England, and John O'Hagan, who was the chief officer at Public Health England, what he said to me was, you just need to use blackout blinds, Mark. So I went, well, hang on a minute, John. What happens when you go out for a walk? What happens if there's a mother walking a child in on a push chair, upside down, a baby whose eyes aren't protected? As you older you get, the more protection you get in your eyes, and that's how you develop cataracts. So you've got a child, a baby, who's being wheeled underneath these lights, which are extremely toxic, cause cancer. We know that they're a cancer-causing radiation emitter. And I said, and you're telling me what I need to do is get blackout blinds for my home so none of that radiation comes into my home. And that's basically the conversation I had with John. And I was absolutely appalled. John then did a paper, which was half retracted, about the dangers posed to the general population from these street LEDs. What I know them to be, they're part of an optical radiation emission weapon system. So they degrade, cause fits. People who are photosensitive, the 3% of the population are photosensitive. They cause fits, they cause sickness, ill health, cancers, and death. And that's what the council had actually installed. Obviously, the nosebleeds, that was pretty interesting. So I started investigating, and I saw there was a small antenna It looked about 4 or 5 centimeters in height. It had a cover on it, and we couldn't really get to see what it was because it was all encapsulated. So one of the guys who lives not far from me, his child had been suffering lots of nosebleeds, inexplicable, had him to doctors. Doctors couldn't tell why he was having nosebleeds. I measured the radiation in the child's bedroom. It's catastrophic, enough to cause increase in blood temperature. And obviously, children have, you can get children have nosebleeds, but if I increase that blood pressure, right, then it's going to be more prominent. And that's what we're starting to see, more prominence of kids having nosebleeds. And this particular character started nice, slim, fit young lad, started running up the street lights, started ripping off the antennas, was actually explaining to him what was actually causing his child's, the assault on his child. So they were running up the lampposts, and at that same time, I spoke to a local councillor, a guy I knew called Peter Moore. Then Peter said, come into the council and do a talk. Because he says, they really just don't know what's going on. So I said, all right, I'll do that. So I went into council, I did a talk. One of the transmitters was directly next to a child's bedroom window where the lamppost had been put in. These are terraced houses where the lamp had been put in and the light was directly outside of a child's bedroom window. And the transmitter on the top had already measured 1800, 3,500 millivolts. The Council of Europe, the International Court, have said the maximum I can expose you to is 200. So I was hitting around, we were averaging out in the gated area about 1,200. This particular home, about 3,500. So absolutely catastrophic, would kill children. And we then started to see people contacting us who'd lost babies at near full term. And that's what I call this technology, baby killing technology, because as a woman becomes pregnant, they expand the skin, the protection that the mother would have over the fetus, right? And as the skin gets tighter, you get what's called calcification of the womb, and obviously a destruction of the fetus. And obviously, unfortunately, these women lost babies, and we had lots of that. I started getting contact from lots of women in the area. We had about 20 women who contacted us where we could confirm that for some inexplicable reason they had lost their babies. So then I spoke at the council. I put across my concerns. The manufacturer of the technology had said that it wasn't safe to several meters from a human. However, they had these transmitters on top of streetlights outside of children's bedroom windows with children in those rooms only very, very short distances. However, what they didn't mention, they said that the technology was ICNIRP compliant, right? It was a 25 milliwatt per centimeter squared transmitter. The ICNIRP compliance is 1, so it's 25 times that. But this had to then be multiplied by the 30-odd thousand transmitters that had been deployed in the gated area. So you had this massive sub-gig, long range, at least 10 miles footprint on each transmitter. So it's 10 mile, and there was 30 plus thousand in the gated area. It was an experiment. So was Bristol, so was Sheffield, so was a number of different, Rotherham, another area where we start to see large increases in sickness, ill health, and death from the deployment of this illegal urban radar. Now, after the transmitters were being removed by some people in the local area, because obviously that children were being attacked and assaulted, I came back from work one afternoon, and there was a lighting crew guy on the top of a streetlight replacing one of these damaged weapons. And I actually remonstrated with him. He came down off the off the gantry equipment, and he was a bit panicky. Anyway, he threw the thing at us. He basically lied to us. He said, "I've been fitting these for 25 years." So I'm like, well, not a 25-year I know about. So anyway, I ended up getting my hands on one. And fortunately, I'd already worked on directional high gain weaponized electronics hardware. And what I could identify that had been installed was a target acquisition weapons system. I was absolutely blown away. I mean, LED lights were bad enough, but this weaponry, this closed urban radar target acquisition weaponry, was actually in the streetlights. So I'm like, well, what am I going to do? So I contact MI5, I contact MI6, I contact all the regulatory bodies. It was like talking to a brick wall. I'd already done a talk at the council. That was like talking to a bunch of absolute brain dead drones. Right? A lot of people don't understand electronic weaponry. I can understand why. They've never been exposed to it. Like doctors haven't been exposed to the symptoms of radiation pollution from this ionizing and non-ionizing radiation emission. So I had all of that, and then what happened? I then started to grow a bit of a following. I came out of the woodwork. I lost a number of contracts. I was working on a number of defence contract projects, and we lost them. I lost my LinkedIn account, which had all of the, let's say, some of the defence DSTL scientists, a lot of the people who you would want to speak to about these particular issues. I lost that. I lost my Facebook account as the whole thing started to grow and grew legs. As people started to realise something very untoward was going on, and then what happened? Uh, I then got threatened. I had lots of threats. I basically just took that with a pinch of salt. I mean, what's the point of getting threatened when people are putting weapons outside of you on top of streetlights outside of your home? I mean, what's the point of succumbing to a threat? So, and I'm not that type of person anyway. So anyway, I got threatened a lot. I was then told by one of the defence contractors that what this was to achieve was actually just killing people who are on benefits. I didn't believe that for a minute. Obviously, if you want to just kill people because they're on benefits, then where do you go with that? You know, it's like killing people with big noses, isn't it? You know, we're going to gas the Jews. Who's going to get gas next? I mean, once you start opening them sort of doorways, you're really starting to ask for trouble. So this particular communication, I went back and said, you know, you're totally, you know, you're off the plane. I mean, you really are just, you know, grasping at straws. So I got threatened a lot. And then as people started to realize that what I was saying was correct and people are started understanding this, the local council took out a press release and said 5G, we've got some conspiracy theorists. Didn't name me, by the way, obviously, because I would have sued them. They didn't name me. What they said was there was conspiracy theorists in the area who were frightening people by telling them that the LED streetlights and the transmitters on the top of the streetlights were dangerous and that would cause cancer, and that there was no merit in it. That's spoken to the WHO and Public Health England. Well, the lead guy, Public Health England, John O'Hagan, who I know. So I contact John, says, have Gated Council been in contact with you about these LEDs that have actually deployed across the area? And he went, no. So then what happened? That went, it got massive coverage. It was in the Times, it was in the Metro paper, and someone in the Metro paper had obviously looked at Gated Council's Facebook page where everybody was saying, Gated Council liars, my child's had nosebleeds, I've lost a baby, blah. So, and then the headline in the Metro paper was nobody believes Gated Council, and it had 33 million impressions. So the next minute, I've got the coppers at the door serving his papers to gag me. And what they said was I was a conspiracy theorist. I had to be gagged because people believed it. Vulnerable people believed me, and I had to be gagged, obviously, to cover up their 5G weapons deployment. Now, obviously, I'm not saying the council didn't know. I mean, we're talking about some very, very dim, thick people. Yeah. So anyway, we'll get to court. uh, we'll get to court, and unfortunately, the whole thing turns out where the recorder and only QC says, "I'm an expert. 5G risk must be debated. This is democracy, and the public have a right to know." So massive, massive win for uh, the information and getting it out. And he actually congratulated us and said, "Carry on your campaign." So I carry on the campaign. So I've been given let's say, a get out of jail card free. They're still trying to get us locked up. They're trying to get us locked up over the baby killing because they said I'd put the counsellors into fear, alarm, distress. They're trying to get us locked up for that. They said the baby killing technology. This technology will kill babies in the womb. Now, what actually happened from that court case? I then contact Northumbria Police and I put a criminal complaint in because at the court case, the chief executive and the mayor, the chief executive and the mayor both lied under oath. They both lied under oath and said I'd went to attack them in the council chamber. Fortunately, someone in the public gallery had actually videotaped the whole event. And when the judge viewed it, he actually said to us, he said, "Well, come on, Mr. Steele," like as if I'm telling lies. He said, "Come on, how many times you been to Gateshead Council?" And I said, "Once." And you could see he was concerned that they'd lied under oath and in their statements in a court case. The chief executive lied, the councillor, the mayor lied under oath where they said it went for them in the council chamber. There's nothing of the sort. That made him start to question what was going on. That's why he read my skeleton argument. Well, my skeleton argument, unfortunately, for these cult members, I'm an expert in this particular field. I've got quite a number of patents to mitigate directional weaponry on the battlefield, namely head-up display systems, and I understand the technology really well. So the judge actually said he's very knowledgeable in this space, not a conspiracy theorist, and the public have a right to know. Anyway, from that, like I said, I made a criminal complaint. The police wouldn't investigate. They still haven't investigated, and I took this up with the Independent Office for Police Conduct because this was genocide. This was the council installing net zero technology that would kill, harm, damage, destroy the environment and ecocide across the country. And Gateshead was a test bed. So I took this up to the IUPC. They then came back and said, "Well, we'll pull this case. You need to investigate this particular crime." I'm still waiting. I've still got those documents, that case bundle where they lied to cover up a genocide, and that's where we are today. We're full in a massive genocide, and I did it very early on, which was fortunate. But the problem that we had, people didn't believe it. Most people, when they're exposed to the criminality, the actual level of evil, the level of evil that most people can't accept, they cannot grasp the scum that we have who are perpetrating this crime against us. And that's, it's not their fault. There's just a lot of people just aren't that way inclined, where they just can't understand that the criminality of net zero is an extermination event. They tell you it's about reducing your carbon dioxide. We are the carbon dioxide they're talking about. They're talking about murdering you. They're not blatantly going, "Look, we're going to kill you." Well, they basically are now. I mean, you've got Mayor Carnage across London. I've now caught them out. I've caught TFL out. They've deployed a full-on battlefield weapons, directional weapons system across the whole of London. Right? It can kill large numbers of the population. It's got the outputs, got the capability, and they're just waiting to pull the trigger. And unfortunately, the people who were victims of their propaganda wore and took the vaccine, not a vaccine, a biochemical weapons injection which has upconverted nanoparticulates. I can elucidate them more easily and I can exterminate them more easily. So that's where we are with the the whole ULEZ thing. But I can see things not going very well for them, Liz, and I know that because the first round of the cull was in 2019 to 20, where the cult expected millions in the UK alone to die, millions and millions. People, unfortunately, who've taken the flu vaccine, which was contaminated with tungsten, those people didn't die. They opened up those Nightingale hospitals. There was a plan to take them in there and finish them off. Didn't happen. People then were terrorized to the point where they would have believed the government bullshit narrative over COVID 19, and consequently, 15 plus million people didn't take the shot. That's far too big a number for these cult members to prosecute what their plan is. Like what Klaus Schwab said, nobody's safe until everybody's safe. What he means is none of these cult scum members are safe until they get everybody injected. They're going to have to come back with another agenda to try and get everybody. Because once they get you tagged with this graphite ferrite oxide type antenna, they can track, trace, and terminate at will. That's what's in the shots. That's what's in that can. They've got a new one for curing cancer. It's the same. It's just a regurgitated bioweapons program that's going to track, trace, and exterminate. So they can let you live your life. As soon as you say, I don't want to starve to death, they just switch off. So if you go to any rallies or you speak about anybody in any derogatory terms, they just switch off. And not only do they switch us off, they switch the people off who've actually went along with it. Because I've got no doubt a lot of these so-called political, let's say, animals, a lot of them have actually taken the shot. They are all potentially at threat to die, same as the judges, the barristers, all the criminals, the police in particular. I had to go in for an interview at the police station just a couple of weeks ago. So anyway, I get in there. It's been somebody been making some comments about murdering people. Obviously, they don't like it. I understand that. So anyway, I get in there. The solicitor says to me, we'll get there. He comes in, looks at all the evidence. Always important you get your duty solicitor because they can then find out what the police have or are intended to talk to you about. So he looks at the evidence and goes, it's got nothing to do with you, Mark. What's all this about? So obviously I've got the documents. So I'm showing him all the and he goes, oh, shit, I've had 3. I said, well, we do have an antidote. Don't panic. I said, we can't fix it. So I said, but you've got to understand, right? It's a target track termination technology. So he's totally on board. We have a 15, 20 minutes talk before they then come in and interview me. And the cop comes in, anyway, they come in, put the tape on. You're right, Mark, blah, the usual. Have you been interviewed before? And he goes, I said, hang on a minute. I said, are you recording this? He said, yes. I said, no. I said, are you recording it? Not about your recorder. So you recording this? He went, what do you mean? I said, you had the COVID-19 vaccine. He said, yes. I said, so you have a graphite ferrite oxide antenna injected into your body, a nanometamaterial antenna. And I said, that will facilitate your recording of this interview, which is in breach of peace. I said, the only recording device that can be used in this room has to be approved by the chief constable. Have you been approved as a recording device by the chief constable? And he was like, I said, well, I'm going to tell you why I'm saying that. I would say things in his interview. Because of the technology that's been injected into you, they can actually audio able, listen to what I'm saying, and they can murder you. They can murder you now. And I said, I don't want that on my conscience, so I have to give you the information to make sure, right? So I don't have any, I'm not implicated in your murder. So I said, it's up to you. If you want to continue, as long as I'll give you a fair warning. So anyway, he's looking at the solicitor, and the solicitor's looking at him going, yeah, it's got it all here. I've got all the documents. I know what these nanometer material antennas are able of. So then well, we're going to have to continue. I said, right, fine. So we're going to continue. And the solicitor goes, I'm just going to stop you there. He says, I've looked at all the evidence you've got. He says, there's absolutely nothing to do with my client. He says, he knows nothing about it. So he says, we're going to be leaving, right? He says, anyway, the cop had to turn around and go, are you gonna answer some questions more? And I go, no. And the coppers go like that. And I get up, they switch the tape off, we get up and we get out and I go, look, I told your chief constable in 2020 this was a target acquisition weapon system linked with a 5G wireless body area network, and they're going to kill all of you. Because once that network's up and running, they don't need a single one of you because it's audio able. They can track, trace, and they can terminate and shoot you. So what do you need the local police for? You don't. And that's what the capability of this equipment is. So that was quite an interesting conversation. Just last week, I was in Cumbria. I did a talk there, large talk, large number of people there. Anyway, Sky News were in attendance and the videotaped the first couple of minutes of my talk. Obviously, when it got a bit naughty, but it's got a bit of reality to it, they switched off that camera. And the person that was with them said, why are you not taping this? And they said, oh no, it's okay. We'll use the sites, because there was cameras, there was other cameras there. They'd already asked us if they could videotape the whole thing, and I said absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I've got no concern about anything that I say and being put in the public domain, and especially by Sky News. Anyway, they turned around to the lad who was with them and they said, no, we're going to interview Mark after this, so we'll leave it for there. So anyway, we get in the hospitality tent. I'm talking away. Sky News guys, the director's sitting in the corner. You've got the camera guy and the reporter. He's asking us questions and making a bit of a tit of himself. Anyway, I'm just batting and balling. I could see the director. She was starting to, you could see the grey matter starting to move because I'm quite lucid and I've got quite a large knowledge in relation to the weapons that are deployed on top of us. So he's trying to push his BBC narrative at us, and I'm just basically batting ball and making him look like a bit of a fool. Anyway, so you won't see it on Sky News, by the way. So anyway, he said which was a silly thing, really. He goes, well, I just follow the science. I says, all right, well, I says, you haven't followed my science, have you? So I says, you don't know anything about biochemical weapons programs, nothing about electronic weaponry, how it track, trace, and termination type technology. He says, well, I've had 5, I'm fine. I said, well, let's just find out if you've got any of those up-converting nanoparticulates washing around inside your cardiovascular system, or if you've got a stable antenna in your deltoid. I says, because we can easily find out. I've got a neodymium magnet here. So anyway, he goes, sure. So they've got this on camera. So anyway, gets his top off, gets his shoulder up, gets the magnet, gets it attached to his antenna. And he's looking because he's trying to hold his arm up and banana put your, so you've got to have it vertical. It's got to be totally vertical because this heavy magnet, I don't want anything, mistake. It's got to stick to it in the vertical, right? Because it's quite a weighty piece of kit. So he sticks it on, boom, straight on. And Les, if you'd seen the colour, he was quite I would say he was, he was a pinky type of reddy type colour. And that just totally went. He went white.
I can totally imagine, Mark. We've done this ourselves. We did an experiment. We had a great friend of ours who's a doctor from London who actually is on our side. And his wife, unbeknown to him, had taken the injections and we did the magnet test, and he and she were horrified. They had never ever seen anything like it. We've got some interference. Can you hear it?
No, no, what's happening is somebody's speaking in the like so it's a very, very powerful tool, Liz, to test people with these near-dear magnets, and it really does start it gets people to realise that they've been totally victimised, and that's not, the big issue that we've got to talk about is the fact that the people that are currently dying are victims of the deployment of the weapon. They're not the real kill. The real kill, they're just the collateral damage. The people who are dying today are collateral damage. The fact of the matter is, right, that there's a larger number, 40 plus million, who are they're planning to kill. And unfortunately, well, fortunately, unfortunately, we've seen a lot of collateral damage, a little bit too much collateral damage. And I believe the reason for that is they weren't aspirating the syringe as they were supposed to. See, what you want is you want this stable antenna in the deltoid. You don't want those nano.
If we look at it, these ICNIRP certificates we've now proven are totally false. And we both of us work with the great Nicholas Martin and the group that Nicholas is with. And so we know now that the ICNIRP certificates are false for these 5G tower. So nothing has been put up that, as far as I can see, is either legal or lawful.
Well, the first thing is, first and foremost, all 5G emits ionizing radiation, right? Because of the focality of the antenna design, creates an emission that causes ionization in air. And because it's focused within that beam wave, if I'm getting over 10, let's put it like this, right? The ICNIRP guideline is 1 milliwatt per centimeter squared. That's 61 electron volts. Now, at 10 electron volts, I will cause ionization, right, in air. So it's 6 times less than the ICNIRP guideline. However, if you've got an omnidirectional antenna, you only have to be outside of the near field, and then that radiation level's totally, so that's safe-ish. You know what I mean? Radiation is not safe, but that's safe-ish because you haven't got that ionizing radiation emission, which we all know ionizing radiation is extremely dangerous, right? It causes DNA damage. It's extremely dangerous. Now, the issue with 5G, it's focused. So you've got a beam wave from an antenna would be a high gain with a dielectric lens. I mean, the Brigade 77 and the British government got pretty upset with me because I discovered what was actually in the streetlights in Gates. It was a high gain antenna, 180 degrees emitter. However, it had a small teardrop, looked like a little teardrop lens on the end, and that teardrop caused focus so you could actually bring the radiation into a focality that's the same as the weapon that they've deployed across the whole of Birmingham. It's a plate lens with an aperture, and that aperture creates a capability in the antenna to create focality. Once I can focus radiation, I can increase its toxicity in air. And the toxicity, you only have to get it, like I said, over about 10, like 10, 40. It depends on the environment. There's a number of environmental factors that significantly differentiate that type of radiation. For instance, in London, you've got that Carnage, Mayor Carnage has installed these fusion type technology weapons. Now, the infrared, the IR pulse mod, you do not want pulse modulated infrared. I can tell you now, it'll cause cataracts, it'll cause central nervous system cancer. So you've got infrared. It operates outside the visible eye spectrum. So you get people who suffer photosensitivity issues, fits, etc., have accidents in these boxes where you've got this stuff emitting at you. And I write a freedom of information request to ask about the technicalities of it. And what I asked was, what's this fusion technology? Because I know fusion technology is extremely dangerous. It's battlefield interrogation equipment. And they come back and go, it's an ENPR and it's a vision system only. They've lied to me. Now, so in a freedom of information request for an environmental impact analysis in a local public body, TFL, have lied to us, that's a serious criminal offence. So I know it's fusion technology. I've got it confirmed from the people that deployed it, it's fusion technology. But that particular piece of hardware, it's all interconnected, right? And untested, uninsurable for harm. So we've got the 5G masts, which none of them have been ICNIRP approved. They couldn't be because ICNIRP is for the non-ionizing radiation protection. Everybody knows ionizing radiation is dangerous. And that's why we're protected from it. There's several laws that protect you from ionizing and non-ionizing radiation, right? Artificial, man ionizing, non-ionizing radiation. The 2012 Social Care Act protects you from that. And what we've seen the deployment of technologies due to, this leveling up. What they mean by leveling you off by this depopulation agenda, because that's really what's going on. So they want to bring technologies into your space. I mean, think about it. Your local council's being told by central government they cannot carry out an environmental impact analysis in relation to a 5G mast. Hang on a minute. Alarm bells should be ringing. The government has said you can't uphold the law. The law is you can't. Radiation is an environmental toxin, right? It's extremely dangerous, but it's okay for councils to follow the guidance. Well, the law or the High Court already said that guidance is not the law. In fact, Matt Hancock himself, when there was the guidance to wear your mask and stay at distance and don't go and see your friends and family, he actually stated he wasn't breaking the law because it was just guidance. He admitted it, just guidance. Well, the guidance not the law. Well, the law is, so you've got councils, local authorities and councils across the country following the guidance and breaking the law. And breaking the law so they can murder you in your beds from the technology that they've deployed, including the LED lights, your smart meters, your 5G network, your 5G wireless body area network, your autonomous vehicles, your electric cars. The whole thing is a cacophony, all part of a climate nonsense to reduce carbon dioxide, which is a green gas, which actually cools the planet. The exact inversion of this satanic cult. So everything they bring to these environments, and we've got to stop them. Because if we don't, these idiots, these absolute drones who we have in positions of power across the country, in local authorities, local mayors, etc., we need to have them in a court and answer this question. Have you carried out an environmental impact analysis? Because I'm going to tell you now, Mayor Carnage, fortunately, he won. I mean, I say that because, he's not my cup of tea. However, if he hadn't have won, they would have took if the Conservative woman had gotten in, they would have actually would have taken out it would have taken out a large body of the resistance. The fact that they've mickeyed the votes is actually still in. In fact, he's hated by just every single living person in any real living person in London. Can't stand the character. He's still in power. And what's happened, it's actually increased the resistance because people have now realised that the democratic system in the UK has been compromised. They now know, right, that there's been a mickeyed vote. They now know that Mayor Carnage has deployed a weapon system because I'm making sure that they know they've had a weapon system deployed on top of them. And I can tell you now, they're going to have trouble. And we're going to make as much trouble as we possibly can. And I've got Blade Runners going out. I mean, the Blade Runners in one place in Hillingdon in North London, they took out 7 of their weapons in one night. The night Corn won, there was 7 of those illegal bits of hardware, those weapon systems were removed. And that's going on all the time. That is, the faster they're putting them up, the faster they're getting taken down. And those guys, absolutely heroes, and I mean absolute heroes of the high. I can't give enough respect to the Blade Runner lads across London, and the more the merrier, the better, the more the merrier. I mean, unfortunately, they'll not arrest me like they did with Lawrence Fox for encouraging it. And the reason for that is because I know it's a weapon system, and Lawrence Fox didn't. And when he finds out it's yet to kill millions of his countrymen, women and children, he might change his tune.
I think the sad thing is, Mark, that we are allowing on these wonderful people to do in effect break the law from what they're doing. But it's an awful state of affairs to get to. Mark, there's so much that we could talk about here and to go on. But there's so much good work being done by you and many others. It's you know yourself. It's not just you. There are so many people now have woken up, and across the country, councils all across the country now are being challenged. And I see today that Powys County Council, a council that my husband and I took to court, took us 7 years through the courts to win, but we did. We took them to court on something completely different. They are going to spend £100 million to reach net zero. And because they're also strapped for cash, as you know, at the moment, they're going to take most of it out of the housing budget. They are, but I have to say, they're not bad people. They're just ignorant, so ignorant. It is
Totally,
just beyond.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not that, the problem is with people, they seem to mix in circles where, they have the inability to critically think about something. I mean, it's like electric cars, for instance. Electric cars require child slavery in Africa. We're all supposed to be signed up against the anti-slavery thing. So they've got child slaves in Africa pulling out the materials that are required for electric vehicles, for the batteries. We've also got the batteries that, if they explode, they create a massive environmental detrimental effect. You've got the weight of the vehicle, which causes more particulate contaminants in the environment, a lot more than what a petrol car will ever produce, due to the weight of the tarmac. Tarmac's a category 1 cancer, causing particulate contaminants. Tarmac's absolutely lethal, by the way. Hydrocarbons. I mean, if you want to get dangerous particulate hydrocarbons in an environment, just put an electric car on the road and that pick up that tarmac and off the rub off the tires, the braking systems, absolutely horrific. So the whole thing's a scam. And not only that, you're using black child slavery to produce it. And if they blow up, the the cloud, the contamination is catastrophic. It's like a dirty bomb, and that's what these autonomous electric vehicles are. They're basically a battlefield weapon system. They're part of a dirty bomb deployment. So I can take them up to someone's home, drive them up there autonomously, and I can then increase the radiation input into the battery. So if you get a fully charged battery, I then cause an overload from the 5G network, as we saw in South Korea when they burst all the transformer boxes out with a 5G switch on. And I can set fire to that vehicle outside your home, and that will kill you. It'll blow up inside your home. They'll have them in your garages. They're going to force them onto you eventually, and they're all toxic. And not only that, the varying magnetic fields from electric vehicles maximum expose a child to, not safe, by the way. The ICNIV guidelines, 30 minutes, and anything over 30 minutes will cause sterilisation, cancer, and death. And that's what they want. They want to sterilise your kids, give you cancer, get you dead pretty quickly. And that all fits with the globalist depopulation narrative. So the whole thing's a scam. I'm pretty positive. I'm looking forward to the summer. Let's, we need to reconvene on this, because I'm pretty confident now, after TFL sending me a number of deceptive communications. You can all be used to beat them up in a court case, and I'd look to see that little weasel of a person carnage across a court to justify the reason why he's deployed a multi-photon fusion weapon system across the whole of London. Well, I know why, but let's just see what he has to say about it. Let's not get into, we don't have to get into conspiracy theory about how people have been injected and how it's all connected. I just have to go on the environmental side of it. Where's the environmental impact analysis? And I can tell you now, it's zero. I've got it from uh, Jacobs. Quite interestingly, Jacobs know about electronic weapons. They've carried out an environmental impact analysis, and guess what? They just totally forgot. They were concerned about where you put the pools, and maybe you may hurt a few worms when you're digging in these pools, these new pieces of hardware. Absolutely zero about the meat and potatoes of the weapon. Nothing about the LiDAR, nothing about the phased array. And what great thing, those lads down in North London in particular, the Blade Runners, I just, contact them and go, I need to have a look at that. The next minute, I've got the whole, I've got the whole shebang. So I've got all the evidence now. I've got the hardware. I've got the technical details behind it. I've got enough to take them and run them through the courts. And I can tell you now, when that judge finds out that he's been vaccinated, right, with a biochemical weapon that's interconnected with Carnage's IR system, and they're going to kill him, right? Not going to go very well for them.
No, it doesn't sound like it, Mark. Um, yes, I can. I know why you're smiling and laughing, and I am as well. But it's not funny, really. And oh dear, these poor people. You mentioned the words a bit ago, and I've been accused of this. Somebody accused me not so long ago of being a critical thinker. I said you can take the word critical out. I just think. It's not. You don't have to be a critical thinker. You just have to think. It's ridiculous.
Well, Liz, it's like the PCR test. I mean, imagine these people were sticking this bud as far up into their nasal passages as they possibly could. Now, if you had a cold, if there's a pathogen, why just not wipe your lips? Why could you not just stick it in the end here? Why do you have to get this stick with a little fiber end on, and you've got to stick it up until it nearly, there was your one young boy who developed a bleed out of his skull because some idiot had shoved it up into his up right up into the nasal passage and actually broke through into the cranium fluid. I mean, that's how much. This is how stupid. I mean, mentally deranged
But
these people are.
Mark, he's better than that. We had an old friend of mine turn up not so long ago, and he is really quite, as you would think, very sane and sensible. But he told me he had COVID last year. I said, "Oh, how do you know?" He said, "I took one of these tests." I said, "If you hadn't taken a test, what would you have had?" Oh, he said it was a cold. I rest my case.
That's
What? I
exactly.
mean, you know, there's nothing you can say, really, is there?
Well, it's all up to do see a little bit of critical thinking or a little bit of research. Anybody that knew Kerry Mullis, right, would tell you what the PCR test was capable of, and they used it. I mean, they were shipping internationally around the world PCR tests in 2017 for COVID-19, and guess who's got the patent for it? The Rothschilds. So the Rothschilds have got this multi-billion-pound. I mean, think about how many people took that test. How much was that test? How much it cost the British taxpayer? I mean, what were 10 or 15 quid all the way from China? They were shipping them into the country in 2017, all ready for this COVID 19 pandemic. Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, right, Mark. I sometimes think that I've been born in, obviously you have as well. We've been born in the wrong generation or the wrong planet or something. Because I'm totally at a when he said to me, I said, "How do you know?" And he said, "I took the test." Well, if you hadn't got a test, well, oh, I had a cold. I thought I just don't know. And even better, my husband and a friend of ours are driving back home last week, nice afternoon through the local forestry, normal road. A woman had got out of her car to let out the two dogs to go for a walk in the forestry paths and whatever. Got out of the car and put a mask on. You know, I mean, the friend of ours who was driving nearly crashed the car. You just can't. You can't write the
You know, they're
You
faking
can't.
it.
You just. I just words failing. Mark, as ever, it's wonderful to have you on. We'll have you back again very shortly, and we'll make this a much more regular thing than we are now. But thank you for your explanations today. People will be absolutely gobsmacked and mesmerised. But I'm afraid I believe every word. So whether I'm in the same ballpark as you or not, I really don't know. But I'll just give up. But
Well,
thank
the issue they have with 5G and the technicalities, unfortunately, I've got them all. And like the judge said in the court case, he's very knowledgeable in this field, unfortunately. So when the government tried to gag us, I mean, what a complete disaster that was. But all part of the universal forces, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, God bless you, Liz, and we'll see you soon.